This is the Brian Kilmeade Show.
I'm not being cynical about Tim Scott individually. If a Republican who may even be sincere in saying, I want us all to live together, doesn't have a plan for how do we address crippling generational poverty that is a consequence of hundreds of years of racism in the society, and we need to do something about that.
So that's just a clip from the David Axelrod podcast with President Obama talking about race. And right away he brings up, I didn't listen to the whole thing, and David Axelrod, I think, does a really good job on that, by the way. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but he went right to Tim Scott, who Trey Gowdy, I just watched him on television. He said he made no effort through 8 years to get to know Tim Scott as a congressman or a senator. So why take shots at him now he's running for president? He's always available, a phone call away. Tyrus is with us now, Fox Nation host. You just saw him on Gutfeld last night, and I'm sure he's going to be all over the channel today. I saw you this morning with Dana Perino. Was it Dana Perino?
Yep.
So, Tyrus, your thoughts before we really get into should I get a tattoo or not?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. Your thoughts about what President Obama just said.
You know, I listened to most of the interview, and I was really disparaged by it. You know, I find taking a shot at Tim Scott, forget just the brother thing, but it was unnecessary. You know, Obama bothers me, and I voted for Obama twice, and I have no problem saying that. I voted for President Trump twice. So I vote for who I choose I feel is the best fit. What bothers me is his complacency through all of this stuff. We've seen with Biden's, and for him to jump in and go after Tim Scott, basically saying that, and there was a polite diss saying that you have no idea what's going on, like you're a spoon-fed brother who has no clue. That couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth.
It's not the fact.
It's not the fact, and you want to talk about disparity, and there was a time in my community, since we got to do that now, in the African American community, where we were thriving and doing well. And grandparents weren't afraid of their grandchildren. And we had two-parent families. And the drugs in the community has destroyed it. And some of our own leadership has not helped. So, but that's across the board. You see it in white communities too. Poor is poor. Drug doesn't know a color. Those things don't know colors. And to make it that, to where Tim Scott doesn't have a pulse of what's going on, is shameful, and I've always defended him. You know that. I'm always quick to be like, hey, chill out. But on this one, he was, as we would say, out of pocket.
So what time was that when you felt as though the African-American family was doing better than it is now?
Well, we certainly after the Jim Crow era, during the Jim Crow era, black families were working hard. They were doing with actual real racist barriers in front of them.
Yeah, get to the back of the bus. You can't sit at the counter.
They were dealing with real things. You can't eat in this restaurant. So they built their own restaurants. They built their own families. Like they did their own communities. So up until I would say the 70s and probably the late 80s,
right,
when drugs became were poured into our neighborhoods, and that's when we started to see the bad crime and now it's just this entitlement to where we're excusing the bad behavior. And, you know, a lot of the systems in place by Democratic government has hurt the black man trying to be a father. You know, if you're trying to get housing and you're poor, the woman can get housing with the children. If the man moves in, they lose the funding. So even the systems that you were in charge of, you had 8 years to do something about this. And nothing was done. So now you're going to say he has no idea what's going on. He was never driving the ship. And I don't like saying this, because people like to pile on in this divisive time we live in right now. But like, you were driving the ship. What changes did you make
with
to
60
the welfare
votes in the
system?
Senate? With 60 votes in the Senate.
With the welfare system, with the housing system, to where young families together could get the housing and the stuff. I mean, I had friends who literally would be staying on my apartment because they couldn't go stay with their girl and their two kids because they weren't married. And if they were married, she wouldn't qualify for the housing. Now, he was still in school. He's working at Hardee's. He's working in the school cafeteria. He's doing his part. He's not out selling drugs, being a thug. He was trying to do the best he could, but still they didn't make enough money to make ends meet and take care of his children. And on top of that, he had the state all over him for child support.
So what he's saying now, and he's not the guy that spoke in Philadelphia after the Reverend Wright controversy, who said how we have to come together to different time. We've made great progress. And he wins the election. And he always talks about the miracle in Iowa. According to reports, Iowa is mostly white.
Yeah.
And then New Hampshire, he killed it. And then we saw what he did. And then he wins even easier the second time around. I would think that he could use that example, say America's not perfect, but man, look at me. Look at my story. Single parent family. Never met my dad twice my entire life.
Yep.
I watched my mom working 2 or 3 times. I saw my grandfather have to pitch in, and they found a way to get me to Occidental. And then I got Ivy League, and then I walked away from a law firm which was going to give me a great living to become a community organizer and walk in Chicago in the winter into the churches, these black churches, and try to sell them on who I could be and what I can do. That's a great story. That was a bestseller.
You know, my own story. I met my dad once, you know, and I didn't need to meet him twice, you know, but along my road, the hands that reached out to me, that opened doors for me, they were all colors. There were men and women. So that when I hear this polarizing attack on race, and it seems just like now you can blame white people for any problem you have in the world, and that's just an easy out right now. And to go back to saying that Tim Scott doesn't know,
right?
I just feel like my problem with Obama is his complacency. And you and I were talking about, you know, looking back now as we see the landscape as it is, there was an opportunity for him to say something that would have changed all of this, to stand up and say the reason why he didn't want Biden to run at the end of his presidency. There was a reason for that. It wasn't, and now we know what it was.
It wasn't Morning Bow.
It wasn't Morning Bow. It wasn't. It had everything to do with what we're seeing with the bribery, the trips, his own agenda. So he knew, and I guess his answer was to be complacent was he just won't run. So I did my part. Obama needs to do more, and now and you could bring the country together. It might not, but they're so worried about stopping Trump that they've become what they supposedly hate. The monster that they've made Trump into,
right?
They've become that and more.
So a couple of things. I want to follow up on the Tim Scott thing. He went ahead and did tax reform, and one thing he told President Trump, he's like, "I need these opportunity zones." Hundreds of millions of dollars where the private sector rebuilds working class communities, impoverished or underprivileged communities. He didn't want to build it to a point where they no one can afford it. A lot of them go in and they make the neighborhood so nice, the people that was trying to help can't afford to live there.
Exactly.
So he did that. He brought over $100 million or $100 billion into this area. It began to thrive. He said, I want to see a plan. If they are sincere Republicans, I want to see a plan. Okay, excuse me, Mr. Criteria. He rolled out his bio first. Then he's going to roll out things in a systematic way. Number 2, you could actually say he had an impact with the last administration, and you have to at least mention the opportunity zones or the problem you've done with it, or you didn't do your research.
Not to mention, look what he attempted to do with police reform. He brought something to the table, and because it had a Republican stamp on the end of his name, they wouldn't work with him. So who is the one with the real problem? What group is the one that doesn't have a pulse on what's going on in our communities? I feel like Tim Scott has the only issue I have with Tim Scott is I'd like him to be a little mad a little bit.
I know.
You know, I'd like him to be like, hey, you know, maybe you got to go a little half-baked movie in some of these cases. F you, you're cool. I'm Tim Scott, I'm out.
It might come.
Yeah,
I mean, it might come, but I worry he's almost too good for politics. If you spend some quality time with him, I get worried that I almost am embarrassed some of the questions that are thrown at him.
His temperance and his resolve, I think, is going to take him far. I still think it's Trump's election to lose in terms of for the Republican Party, but Tim Scott would make a phenomenal VP.
So let me just tell you this. Yesterday, I'm doing the 8 o'clock show all week, and when Tim Scott's in the news, just like The View is a blessing. When they call you out and you can go do that national show, you become the national news. Obama gave him a break yesterday by bringing him up.
Yep.
All of a sudden he gets elevated, and he's the greatest guy. I'm texting him. They go, yeah, he's a little busy. He's got events. I go, we will send a camera to his event, turn around, face your audience, whatever it is.
Right.
Walk outside. You get 3 million people. Well, they have the show 3 times. And they go, yeah, no, he's booked up. And I go, that's a dumb ass decision to not do the show.
But
just
then again, he's
the
a
president.
victim of his own humbleness, you know, because I'm going to be honest, coming from Barack Obama, who is arguably the greatest black politician. He rose and became president.
Very talented.
But for him to throw shade to another brother coming up because he has a different belief in terms of size of government, I just think is shameful. Argue him on the merits.
Yeah.
Leave race out of it.
So I want you to hear what Tim Scott did say on Mark Levin's show, Cut 13.
And I will tell you, the one thing the far left does not want a black person to be in this country is a conservative. It is possible for America to come together, but not because of the color of our skin, but because of the consistency of our value system.
And he went on, but basically, it's like you have an opportunity here. Why are you taking me down?
Well, but that's the thing, that they want to push that. But I'm still a guy who does his own shopping, goes to the barbershop, goes to the gym, and most of the brothers I meet are like, you keep doing it. So as a conservative brother, which has nothing to do with the color of my skin, I don't get no one's like, I'm not shaking your hand, bro. I don't have an issue with you. The one thing I was getting for a long time was, hey, man, especially by a lot of brothers in entertainment, be like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Hey, you want to come on the show? No, I don't, because I don't want to lose my acting gigs. And that's probably the problem is that black men in particular, whenever we take a stand on individually and power, and being a Republican is that you believe in capitalists, doing it your damn self, keep the government off my back, and keep my taxes manageable. And that's independence. And whenever we're independent and powerful like that, the Democrats have a real problem with it. But they don't attack us on merit. They don't give me the debate why I should be a Democrat. Let me hear the sales pitch. No. My blackness is taken away from me. Well, you're not black. You lose your blackness. So what is that? So what do I get then? I get a tax break for that? No. Right. They always want to attack us there because you can't argue with nonsense. Let's talk about the issues. No one's ever asked me that has an issue with me being conservative. Why? It's just how they like to use the Uncle Tom and the sell. How am I selling out by believing in capitalists and want to protect mine and enrich my family?
Right. I just think you get off conservative and you get off liberal and you just talk about capitalists. Yep. That would solve a lot of problems. I want to compete.
Yeah.
And then I would like to give more of my money to social programs. I like to give less and decide where I want my money to go. But we have to get back to appreciating capitalism. It seems to have been taken out of the schools, which is nuts to me, because that's the thing about America. We need to compete. We don't need to win every time, but by competing, we all get better.
But again, the three greatest teachers are failure, loss, and sorrow. And pain. You've got to go through those. You got to graduate especially to become a young man, to become a man in this. But in anything, those failures is what you build off of. What the Democrat, it's a polite racism is what I call it, is they're basically saying you can't compete, so we're going to make you all status quo. You're all going to get a trophy for participation because you can't do it without us.
Well,
and that drives me insane.
But institutional racism is keeping you down, and you're the exception. They told Tim Scott he's the exception.
He's not the exception. He's not. There are Tim Scotts all over this country, millions of us. They're just not in politics. Some of them are teachers, doctors, lawyers, professional athletes who use their body and work their asses off in the gym and sacrifice to get where they are. We're everywhere. The problem is they try to convince us it's not. It's just like people try to convince us that Twitter represents America. It doesn't. It's 10% of 10%.
I hear you. More with Tyrus in just a moment, and then we're going to get an exclusive on your next live show. Is that correct?
Sure. Yep.
You will not tell anybody in the break. You'll save it for my audience?
Well, I usually talk to the people in the break because
don't do that. Yeah.
You're usually running around because you got like 4 other jobs during the break.
I do. We're doing you got to watch the 8 o'clock show tonight, right?
Of course.
And thanks so much for helping me out this week.
Yeah, I got you.
Right, that was good.
Sorry about that size 3 joke.
Yeah, that really hurt.
I'm sorry.
Back in a moment. Hey, we're back. And by the way, I'll be on, don't forget, Saturday night at 8, One Nation, and tonight at 8, doing Fox News Tonight. Tyrus kind enough to help me out. Tyrus, you do this great stage show. And I know you love it. And I couldn't believe how many dates you have. Do you remember the dates off the top? Where are you going to be? Where are you going to be next?
Okay, so I'll be in Billings, Montana. And I got 2 shows in Montana, and I'm really excited about because I purchased land in Montana about 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. I got 21 acres just off of Bear Claw Mountain. Bear Tooth or Bear Claw.
Is there anything there?
Nothing. That's the cool part. I even can name my own streets. It's nothing. So when I make my exit strategy, like it'll be a rotary phone. You know what I'm saying? Once I step outside to go wrestle with bears and ride bison for the day, you're not going to find me. Like when I'm off the grid, you're going to need to have one of your teams.
Did you
come
need a
find
realtor
me.
to buy this plot of land?
So again, this is the wonderful thing about Fox News fans. So I made a joke on Gutfeld about moving to Montana, and literally within there was a message on Instagram like, "Hey, we don't usually sell land." So Mel Gibson had bought, I believe it was like 189 acres in this area, and eventually some financial issues or whatever, he sold it back to the people, and they weren't going to sell it, and they were willing to sell me a 21-acre spot of it.
Wow!
So and my backyard is the national park.
Are you
so
kidding?
No neighbors, no loud neighbors, no lousy kids.
Just cougars and
just
bison.
Cougars and bears, and you know what? It's straight up. You leave me alone, I leave you alone. You know, and if something goes wrong, I got a fighting chance.
So you booked a stage show in Billings so you could visit your land.
Well, I'm taking my kids on tour with me. Lord help me. But I'm trying to teach them. They all have to work and have a job. But I'm gonna be in my Kearney, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm going to be in Arkansas. I'll be in Fresno, California. I'll be in. Man, we're everywhere. You can check it out on my Linktree on my social media for this stuff. Most of the shows are just about sold out.
What do you mean on Linktree?
I have a Linktree app on my Twitter and my Instagram, and you can just click my Linktree, and it'll have all the events coming up. It also has the plug for my new book too. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. When's the book out?
The book comes out in November, just in time for Christmas.
What day?
I believe we're going to go November, I think it was 22nd or something like that.
All right, so I have 2 weeks without Tyrus. So I'll have 2 weeks if I don't get to the top of the list.
Oh, no, I'm sure I'll be in a monitor somewhere because even when I'm home, I'm working.
All right.
You know, I'm always working. I'm not quite Kilmeade.
Right.
I'm not Kilmeade, but I'm doing the Tyrus thing because you never don't work.
You're more diversified.
Yeah, and then when you go home, you got to cut the grass. You got work to do. Okay, Father's Day is coming up. Is your gift leave me alone?
No. To me, I don't. My biggest worry would be free time. So when I got in last night at 10:10, first thing I did is to get two of the three dogs. One's having problems, and I took them for a walk. Came back, handled the garbage, but then I was ready to go to bed. So I felt I contributed something to my house.
So if I was going to torture you, I would just put you in a room with no sound.
That'd be terrible.
With nothing to do.
Nothing to do.
You tell me all the secrets.
Right. I would have to get in touch with my thoughts.
Okay, speaking of secrets, so when are you going to start working on that book? Because I'm excited about it.
No, it's November 8th. It's out.
Okay.
It's in. I got one. I have to. I handed my version of the prologue, and I'm going to make sure the editor is okay with it. So I should know by the end of the week. But I went and got another. They gave me another 70 pictures of Booker T, about 20 of which have never been seen before at Tuskegee. So it's going to be Teddy and Booker T. But when I saw these pictures, I said, hold on. Take a look at this. And one, we found just Teddy at Tuskegee without Booker T, but I still want to use it. That's how.
As you should.
Right.
See, I love your history lesson books, man. Like if you have a broad understanding of our history, any one of your books, like you and Brett Barrett's like neck and neck, but I got to give you the advantage.
Why? Because he's not here.
No, because you bring me on the show more.
Absolutely. Well, he put you on the panel in a second.
Oh, he did. The only thing he did to me when he was talking about my book, he took the glasses off on me, and I legit panicked.
Tyrus, thanks so much.
The glasses come off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.